In what promises to be a thrilling ride, sit tight as we bring to you 10 of Family Guy's paraplegic police officer Joe Swanson's best moments. After Joe helps the police track down a drug cartel, he probably thought he was in for the best moments of his life. No doubt, the experience was bliss, but as the days progress, he discovers his heart yearns for something more. A vacuum created by the absence of someone special. The episode starts off at the Drunken Clam, where Peter and Quagmire are just chilling. Their chilling time is then interrupted by breaking news.
We interrupt this program for some breaking news, which is why I'm still chewing a bagel. Just roll the footage.
Cut the presenter some slack. He's a journalist, not a firefighter. Reported on the news is a drug bust orchestrated by none other than Peter and Quagmire's buddy, Officer Joe Swanson. Moments later, Joe Swanson swings into the bar, and everyone erupts in cheers and admiration of the cop.
Great job, Joe! Way to go! There he is!
Joe makes it to where his friends are and is bombarded with a truckload of heartfelt congratulations from Peter and Quagmire. Joe then admits how good it feels to finally get recognized by the police chief. Before they part ways, Joe invites them to a party thrown in his honor. Quagmire agrees to attend, and so Peter follows suit in a rush. They all disperse with hopes to meet again at Joe's party. Joe is in high spirits, but as soon as he gets home, his spirit becomes dampened. Sadly, his wife Bonnie isn't as elated as his friends when he breaks the news to her.
Hey, Bonnie, I made a major drug bust today, the biggest one the force has ever seen.
That's great, Joe.
You don't seem very excited. I mean, this is a huge deal for me. The chief is even throwing me a party tonight.
I don't know if I can take another evening of sympathetic eye contact from all the other wives.
With that, she saunters off, making sure Joe doesn't head on to his party in a jolly mood. The party starts off on a good note. As for Peter and Quagmire, who are always up to little or no good, they succeed in ruining the bartender's evening with their crazy assumptions and utterance. The man of the hour, Joe Swanson, seems to be basking in the euphoria of his latest feat, but something's missing. We see this when a junior colleague, Nora, walks up to congratulate him.
You seem a little distracted. Is everything okay?
Yeah, sorry, I was just thinking about that. Someone should have come tonight, but they didn't. That's nothing.
Obviously drawn to her senior colleague, Nora kisses the unsuspecting Joe, an icing on the cake of his wonderful party. Back at the Clam, their favorite hangout spot, he confides in his friends about what transpired between him and Nora the previous night, and they only make matters worse. However, this would lead to a series of events that will culminate in one of Joe's favorite experiences.
Way to go, Joe. Did you bang her?
What? Of course not, Quagmire. I mean, I'm a married man. I could never cheat on Bonnie.
Gotta admit that Joe's a decent man, but definitely not his friends.
Well, under normal circumstances, you'd be right to say that, but in this case, cheating would be the only fair thing.
What? What are you talking about?
Come on, didn't Bonnie have that affair in Paris?
But I'm still not sure that's a reason to betray Bonnie.
Come on, Joe, sleeping with this girl will even things up. You can't have that kind of imbalance in your relationship. In fact, you owe it to Bonnie to have sex with this woman. It's for the good of your marriage.
Nice one, you two. Advice of the century. Maybe the president of the U.S. should one day consider recruiting them into his team of advisors. What a valuable addition they would make. Left to himself, Joe wouldn't have heeded his friend's advice, but the situation at home wasn't helping matters. With Bonnie recently pushing him away, he finally succumbs to having sex with Nora in the restroom. Kinda feels like what high school kids would do. At his son's birthday party, Joe opens up about feeling guilty about the whole thing to his friends. Unfortunately, Bonnie gets wind of the conversation and all hell breaks loose. During the heat of the conversation, we discover that Bonnie never really cheated on Joe, and it was all a mix-up by Peter and Quagmire. Sadly, it was too late. Joe had already cheated, and now Bonnie was asking for a divorce. We then see Joe packing his stuff as he recounts the first day he met his wife and how happy he'd been. With that in mind, Peter comes up with a plan to get them back together. Together with his wife, they plot to recreate the events of the first day the Swansons met.
Lois, I know how to get Joe and Bonnie back together. Joe just told me how he and Bonnie met. So I figure all we gotta do is find a way to recreate the magic of that night.
Magical indeed, because it worked. All thanks to Peter the Wizard. Their plan goes as planned. Pun heavily intended. Joe and Bonnie find themselves in the bar they first met. The ambiance was romantic, and it was only a matter of time before Joe apologizes and dances with Bonnie. Finally, lights fade out as they both kiss, just like they did on their first date. It's just an innocent game of softball until things go sour in a split second and someone is no longer breathing.
Oh my God, Horace is really hurt.
He's dead. Oh, no. Let him rest in peace.
At Horace's funeral, while Quagmire and Peter aren't man enough to say actual words, Joe delivers a heartwarming speech in Horace's honor.
Horace owned the clam for over 30 years. During that time, he touched all of our lives. He was a great bartender and a great friend.
Following Horace's passing, the trio faces even bigger problems. Their favorite bar is on the brink of permanent closure.
What the hell? Hey, pal, what are you doing? This is our bar.
Not anymore. Horace owed more than this place is worth, so it's the bank's now. I'm sorry, but the Drunken Clam is permanently closed.
Desperate for where to drink, they resort to drinking at Peter's, a decision that doesn't sit well with Lois at all.
Peter, what's going on down here? Why are there beer bottles all over the floor?
Oh, we needed a new spot to drink, Lois.
Forget it, Peter. You're not turning our living room into a bar.
Frustrated, they sneak back into the Clam and get wasted. In the morning, they are greeted with bulldozers brought by the bank to demolish the bar. They try to stick together, but Joe, being a cop and fearing how it might affect his career, opts out.
Guys, this is crazy. Plus, I'm a cop. I can't be a part of this.
Joe, however, has a change of heart. At the last minute, he chooses to stand with his friend in the interest of the bar. A miracle happens somehow, and someone shows up to buy the bar, saving it from demolition.
Listen, it's kind of all my fault this happened in the first place. I'm responsible for Horace's death. So when I heard on the news that they were tearing down this bar, I saw buying it as a way to carry on Horace's legacy. So I own the Clam now.
Here I see three friends defying all odds to stand against what seems to pose a threat to something they love. Way to go, Joe and the gang. We don't talk about how damaging low self-esteem can be. We don't say it enough. In this episode, we see it play out in the life of Officer Joe Swanson. As usual, the episode kickstarts at their hangout spot, the Clam. Officer Joe joins Cleveland, Quagmire, and Peter. He apologizes for coming late, saying he had to run errands for his superiors at the office. A revelation that puts his friends off.
Jeez, Joe, what the hell happened? You used to be this badass cop out there on the street, busting heads and keeping us safe.
Joe ignores them and rolls off, pretending to be happy with his job. Poor Joe. His esteem is at an all-time low, but what can he do? In an interesting turn of events, Joe finds himself riding with Peter en route to bust an ongoing crime. How did that happen? Well, Joe is skeptical at first, but Peter is convincing enough to make him do that. At work, Joe receives accolades for a job well done, and slowly, his confidence begins to build. He and Peter go for a couple more trips like that, and soon, Joe's exploits become the talk of the town, with Peter doing most of the work. On their last crime bust, Joe shocks even himself by taking out an entire gang single-handedly.
Holy crap, Joe, that was freaking amazing! You kicked their ass!
You're right. I guess I did.
And without my help. See, this is the Joe I remember. You know, maybe you had it in you all along.
You're right, Peter. I'm a pretty good cop.
Just like that, Joe's esteem is restored. Now tell me, what's more satisfying than that? Besides orgasms. This episode reminds us that things can change from bad to good in just a matter of seconds. We see that play out in the lives of the Swansons. It's a special holiday, Thanksgiving. Well, that explains why most everyone in the neighborhood seeks to grab a meal at the Griffin's house. Then, something quite revealing, yet humorous, happens.
That must be Joe and Bonnie. And remember, everyone, let's be cheerful, because Thanksgivings are very hard for them.
Yeah, that's right. The couple aren't always happy on this day because it coincides with the day believed to be their son's demise. They show up sunken, looking like they'd rather be somewhere else. But the celebration's gotta go on. Everyone settles around the big dining table to eat, and while they're eating, the door flies open, and they're greeted by an unexpected visitor, Kevin.
Oh my God! Kevin Swanson!
Son, you're alive!
They are so excited to see him because they all thought Kevin kicked the bucket while on an operation in Iraq. Kevin would later explain that it was all a lie. But some things just didn't make sense to Joe. Smelling a rat, he confronts his son, who later says the actual truth in front of everyone. Turns out, Kevin was never really in Iraq. Well, he was, but then he got fed up with how things turned out over there. As fate would have it, an explosion occurred, killing all his bunkmates, but somehow his life was spared. Kevin saw that as an opportunity to flee, so he did, faking his death by leaving behind his ID. This revelation clearly didn't sit well with everyone in the room, including Joe. Being a cop, Joe then tries to arrest his son. Yes, you heard that right. Joe wanted to arrest his son. Kevin, however, reminds his dad of a similar incident that happened to him in the past. Emotions begin to fly as Kevin speaks, but in the end, he and his dad Joe share a very special moment as they hold each other in a very tight and warm embrace.
Glad you're home, son.
Me too, Dad.
Going forward, Joe and Bonnie can go on to enjoy Thanksgiving celebrations again. Kevin's reappearance brought joy to their lives once more. It all starts out in Peter's apartment. Peter is clearing out the lawn when a freak accident occurs and he has to rush Quagmire to the hospital.
Holy crap, Quagmire, you all right?
No, I'm not all right. My head's gushing blood, you idiot!
At the hospital after treatment, the doctor recommends certain medications and they head to Mort's pharmacy. At the pharmacy, Mort can't stop complaining about how bad things have gotten for him.
Hey, Mort, how's it going?
Oh, it's awful, Peter.
Why? What's the matter?
The pharmacy's going under. I can barely pay my bills.
And so, Mort and Quagmire decide to help. Their plan is to burn down the pharmacy so he can get money from the insurance policy. All go as planned, and several mornings later, all that's left of the pharmacy are just ashes. Away on a trip, Joe coincidentally returns home and promises to help investigate the matter.
Well, you're my friend, Mort. I want you to know that I'm going to personally go over all the evidence.
The next turn of events see Joe carrying out his duties as a police officer with diligence and without bias. Soon, the truth about the fire incident comes out and Joe ensures his friends are held accountable, charging them for insurance fraud. But in the end, friendship prevails. Seeing insurance companies as the scumbags Mort projected them to be, and also having experienced it himself, Joe deletes the evidence he has against them and lets them go free. You might call it corruption. I'd like to call it friendship. After seeing a commercial on TV, the guys decide to go on a very crazy adventure where they try to outrun bulls. They don't think Joe is fit for it, so they go ahead and make plans without him.
You guys, we are so doing that bull run.
Buying the tickets as we speak.
Oh, we can't tell Joe.
Of course not. He'll be dead weight. You can't do a bull run with a guy in a wheelchair.
Yeah, this is for athletes.
Well, what's done in the dark will always find its way to the light. Joe gets wind of their plans, or more like, they tell him.
Look, Joe, we didn't want to tell you, but we're going to the seriously wicked bull run. We didn't invite you because we didn't think you could keep up.
Yeah, we thought it seemed too dangerous for, incapacitated half-man shrivel-legged gimps. And we didn't want to hurt your feelings.
Ever the egotistical character, Joe isn't having any of what they say. He perseveres so hard that his friends are left with no other choice than to let him tag along. At the bull run, things definitely go bad. No surprises there, it was always going to be this way. Joe is lucky to make it out of there alive, but his total paralysis is an ugly reminder of his unfortunate predicament.
Mr. Swanson has lost all movement and will require around-the-clock care. Most of it disgusting.
Immediately, Bonnie abandons him and then he's stuck with his friends, who can't do much to help him. They try for a while to take care of Joe, but unable to do so effectively, they resort to taking him to a place that's supposed to cater to people with the same kind of predicament as Joe. Guilt gets the better of them for dumping Joe off, and so after some days, they go back to take him home. At this point, things begin to take shape as they discover a shocking yet relieving truth. Joe isn't paralyzed after all. It turns out the doctor left his phone inside Joe while running a checkup, and coincidentally, the doctor's phone is what's pressing against Joe's spine, rendering him fully paralyzed. Everything gets sorted out, and Joe is back to being active. It takes a moment of ill fortune for Joe to find out how much his friends love him. A top-tier beautiful moment, if you ask me. Per usual, the episode begins with Peter, Quagmire, Cleveland, and Joe at the Drunken Clam having a conversation about Father's Day.
So is everybody excited for Father's Day on Sunday?
Oh, yeah, that's right. I always try to avoid Father's Day now. Every year I used to take my dad to the horse track. Now we just go rooting around for bargains at the mall.
You can't blame him, though. His father is now a woman. Peter then asks Joe an awkward but honest question.
But Joe, why haven't you seen your dad?
Well, he's a good guy, but we just drifted apart. It's no big deal.
It's a very big deal. My dad's a stinking drunk who lives in Ireland, but you got a perfectly good dad. You can't waste that. You gotta call him up for Father's Day.
Peter, I don't even know where he is. Who's ready for another beer?
It wasn't Joe's turn to buy the next round of beer, so you could tell that he had something to hide. His friends sense this and feel sad for him and how he has never gotten to see his dad. Being the nosy friend who can't mind his own business, Peter promises to track Joe's dad down so they can celebrate Father's Day together. He quickly finds Joe's dad, Bud, on the internet, and they plan to surprise Joe on Father's Day. Unlike their expectations, Joe freaks out on hearing their plans to have his dad over for Father's Day. He opens up that his father would not be happy to see him, not because he's a jerk or anything, but because he's got a habit of making fun of handicapped people.
No, it's just that ever since I was a little kid, he was constantly making fun of handicapped people.
Really?
Yeah, my whole life. My dad would ridicule anyone in a wheelchair. It was all, hey, spaghetti legs, and hey, rigatoni legs, and hey, angel hair legs. He was a sales manager at Ronzoni.
Apparently, Bud doesn't know Joe is handicapped, and Joe never told him. Joe's emotions alternate from anger to tears, then disbelief and back to anger as he asks his friends to cancel the invitation, which is not possible because they had already sent the ticket. Peter promises to find a way out. His latest bright idea is to hide Joe's handicap from his dad.
Peter, I'm afraid this is hopeless.
What? I don't know what else to do. I mean, we're not gonna come up with something better than the horse.
Yeah, I guess you're just gonna have to tell your dad about your handicap.
I can't do that. If you guys were in my shoes, you'd understand.
Wait a minute. That's it. I will get in your shoes. I'll just pretend to be you. I mean, your dad ain't seen you in years. He won't know the difference.
What? That's crazy.
Well, crazy or not, it appears to be the only way to get through Father's Day without anyone getting hurt. So Joe agrees. Moreover, the plan goes well enough. Bud arrives, and after a few moments of clumsiness, Peter gets into character and plays his role. He not only gets into character, but overacts his part. Peter gets used to the feeling of having a father who loves him. With things going so well, Peter asks Bud to move in completely. Joe, on the other hand, is disguised as Peter and introduced to Bud as the handicapped neighbor. And, as you might have predicted, Bud makes fun of his condition. However, things get out of hand when Joe, trying to dispose of waste, clumsily scatters it all over the place. Bud gets irritated and asks that Joe be sent away. This hurts Joe's feelings, and he openly confronts Peter.
What are you doing? You're my son. You can't let yourself get beat up by a guy in a wheelchair.
Your son is a guy in a wheelchair.
What are you talking about?
Yes, Dad. It's me.
Joe, what the hell happened to you?
Joe then opens up to his dad about his condition, and surprisingly, Bud doesn't react the way Joe feared he would. Peter even apologizes to Joe.
Listen, Joe, I'm sorry I treated you like such a jerk.
Well, that's okay, Peter. In fact, I gotta say it was a nice thing you did. I'm glad I reconnected with my dad after all these years.
It was my pleasure.
Anyway, thanks for helping me, Peter.
Yeah, it all worked out great, Joe.
For some reason, Joe seems to be very happy in this episode. He was so fascinated by technology that he was of the theory that the military was in possession of even more sophisticated technologies. The episode opens at their usual hangout spot, the Clam. They're out drinking on Saturday morning, much to Lois's displeasure.
Peter, you're not going to the Clam, are you?
Waffle!
Waffles indeed. Many beers now come in waffle flavor. Soon, they finish drinking and they head outside. There, they see a scooter powered by an iPad, and Joe launches into a crazy song.
Wonders, we're surrounded by wonders.
Peter figures out how to get the scooter working, and they all hop on as they go on an exhilarating adventure across different cities. Yeah, that's right. That's more than 18 hours. Joe's legs dangling as he holds on is a much funnier sight than Cleveland drooling while he slept. With these men, you're sure of a thing or two going wrong. They crash into a lake, and if not for the swift intervention of the mayor, they would have ended in the belly of an alligator. The mayor rescues them back to town. They soon arrive on horse, back amidst the welcome praises of the community. Joe launches into his song again, when Lois shows off her new wristwatch. I'll tell you this for free. Once this episode ends, you'll probably never come across this version of Joe again.
Look around and be amazed. That pad on your lap could buy a shirt at the Gap.
It starts off with news of the arrest of Bobby the Shirt Briggs. a wanted criminal notorious for wearing shirts while committing crimes.
This just in, wanted fugitive Bobby the Shirt Briggs, notorious for always wearing shirts while committing his crimes, has finally been caught after 15 years on the lam.
Tom Tucker, the reporter, quotes Briggs' notoriety for wearing shirts while committing his crime like he's supposed to commit crimes in his birthday suit. Moving forward, the news gets to Joe and he suddenly becomes emotional. His friends, Peter and Quagmire, however, are surprised by his burst of emotions and interest in the case. Joe then reveals that Briggs is the man who put him in the wheelchair, reliving an event from years ago, where he was shot by Bobby Briggs. According to Joe, he was unable to admit to the main reason behind his being crippled because it was embarrassing.
Wait a minute, Bobby Briggs is the one who crippled you? You always told us you fell off a roof during a fight with the Grinch.
I lied. I lied because I was ashamed of the real story. That I let a vicious criminal get away.
Joe then goes further to reveal the truth behind his wheelchair affair. Apparently, he was this close to apprehending Briggs and exposing his heroin operations when he got busted by the criminal. As an undercover agent, Joe had a handful of evidence to lock Briggs up, but he wanted to top his evidence with a recorded one. But since he is such a bad actor, he gets discovered easily and shot 7 times in the leg, making a waste of 6 months spent in tracking the criminal and gaining his confidence. 6 shots for the 6 months went down the drain, and 1 shot for the waste of the confidence gained. The next day, Joe threw a Justice for Joe party to celebrate his closure with Briggs. Joe sure likes to throw parties. He tells Peter that the night he heard about the arrest of Briggs was the only night he didn't strangle his wife, Bonnie, in his sleep. Big win. Way to go, Joe. Unfortunately, while celebrating his win, Joe's son calls their attention to a breaking news on television where the escape of Briggs was announced. Briggs was reported to have escaped during the prison open house. That effectively puts an end to Joe's party. Joe becomes heartbroken, knowing that it took the cops about 15 years to apprehend Briggs, so what are the chances that they will catch him anytime soon? He then decides that he is not patient enough to wait for a second arrest, so he becomes obsessed with finding and punishing him.
Well, Chief, I'm here because I want you to put me on the Briggs case.
Absolutely not.
Come on, Chief! I know everything about Briggs. I'm the only one who can catch him.
No, Swanson, you're too close to the case. I'm putting officers Grant and Casey on it because they're so far from the case they don't care about it at all.
This isn't fair!
Swanson, you know your assignment. You get me the guy who's been rubbing his butt all over Dunkin' Donuts.
Let's call him Dunkin' Donuts butt guy. Meanwhile, Peter advises Joe to go after Briggs against police protocol, pledging his support and assistance alongside Quagmire's against Quagmire's will. Who cares what Quagmire thinks?
This isn't about you as a cop. This is about you as a man.
Joe agrees, and this newfound sense of purpose both excites and motivates him. His obsession drives the plot forward, leading to a series of intense and action-packed sequences. Their search leads them to Tanya, a stripper who works in Atlantic City, the only romantic affair that Briggs maintained. They then track Briggs to his apartment, but the criminal escapes. One of the many hurdles they had to overcome. One of the biggest setbacks was when the trio got apprehended by an officer who Joe figured were the corrupt ones that helped harbor Briggs. Fortunately, with the help of Quagmire's variety of escape penises, they are able to free themselves. Now free, they realize that they had no leads until Peter randomly pulls out a note he picked at Briggs' apartment. On that note was the area code for Juarez, Mexico, which revealed that Briggs was trying to get over the border. The trio then decide to ambush him, and luckily, they catch up with him at the border of Mexico by the river. Although Briggs almost slipped again for the umpteenth time, Joe was smarter.
You're not gonna get away this time, you son of a bitch.
Please, don't kill me. I'm not married. My life is awesome.
But I'm not gonna kill you. I'm not an animal like you.
So what are you gonna do, arrest me?
No, I don't arrest cripples. By the way, you're under arrest. I only said that last thing because it seemed cool.
Ultimately, while the episode's primary focus is on Joe's quest for revenge, there are moments where we see Joe's happier side. The banter and interactions between Joe and his friends lead to some comedic moments, showcasing Joe's lighter side. The friendship and partnership between Joe, Quagmire, and Peter add a touch of warmth to the episode, highlighting the importance of relationships in Joe's life. Finally, we draw the curtains at the episode titled Jersey Boar. Peter being looked down by his boss at work would turn out to be an integral part of his boss's career growth and the brand they work for in general.
And my results show you to be the brewery's least productive employee. So, pack your bags.
I'm fired?
No, you're going on a business trip with me as my assistant, since you won't be missed at the office.
But Peter doesn't want to go. When he links up with his friends as usual, he complains all through their drinking session.
Peter, is something wrong? We've been here an hour and you've hardly touched your penis.
It's not like you. It's getting cold.
Sorry, guys. I just found out I have to meet my stupid boss in Atlantic City for a business trip.
However, Peter suggests or pleads with his friends to accompany him there. They all agree. In Atlanta, they make his stay memorable. Joe and the rest, Preston, Peter's boss, catches him drinking with his friends. Truly, that moment inspires him to trust Peter with the task that brought them to Atlanta. Peter goes ahead to deliver an outstanding presentation, sealing a deal for his company with a reputable investor. But Peter didn't achieve this on his own. Along with his buddies, Joe inclusive, they provided the succor needed at a business trip with his boss. Leveraging on that comfort, Peter is able to save the day. Cheers to sincere friendship. So that's it for today. Hope you enjoyed it. Kindly like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit that subscribe button for more videos like this. See you soon.